This is Ashley Hawkins, and I am the manga librarian. And today I am going to do what I hope is a fairly short video about a topic that I said I would talk about in a little bit more depth, and that is the manga rating system, which is pretty particular to the United States. I believe some other countries use it, but it's basically a rating system that's supposed to give you an idea of the appropriateness of manga for particular age groups. It is not regulated the way other rating systems are, like for movies and things like that. But it's more set by the publishers to give sort of guidelines. And it's actually a pretty useful tool for librarians who are doing collection development to just kind of have an idea of what it is you're looking at. And you know, I think it's particularly useful to elementary librarians. The older the designations get, the more hazy they get. Um, it, I mean, they're not perfect. They're all set by the publishers, so there's like this weird sort of nebulousness. So we're going to talk about the categories and what the age groupings are. They also kind of vary from publisher to publisher. Some of them use different terminology. Some of them skip certain age groups altogether. So we'll just kind of go from there. So we'll start from, you know, the lowest and then go up to the highest, I guess. So we'll start with E for everyone, or A for all ages. So this is the manga that is appropriate for everyone to read. It's not necessarily kids manga, although kids manga typically is what fits into this group. We also call kids manga kodomo, which is the Japanese word for children's, or children. But not all manga that is for everyone is kodomo. An example would be this manga here, A Man and His Cat by Umi Sakurai. This is a manga that is rated A, or all ages, by Square Enix. And it is a manga about an older gentleman who acquires a cat, and it's one of my favorites. It's super sweet. It's very heartwarming. It's just kind of a slice of life. Very, very nice, mild manga. Nothing objectionable happens in it. But there's certainly sort of an adult element to it. There's he's an older gentleman who has lost his wife, and so there's definitely a delicate strain of grief that's through it, which means that there's a little bit of sophistication to it in some ways, which makes it appeal to adult readers. Also, there are women who find older gentlemen more attractive, and therefore this is collected by certain groups of otaku in Japan and abroad, who like that sort of thing and like to look at drawn pictures of older gentlemen looking refined. I collect it because I like cats. I just find it very sweet. There's a certain layer of humor to it. It works for kids, it works for adults, it works on multiple layers. These are generally very safe manga. They may not always appeal to kids, and that's the reason to kind of look at them and read them. Like, I don't know, unless, like, it would take a kid being a cat lover, or an animal lover to really get into this. I think this does appeal a little bit more to older audiences, because there's sort of there's the references to his wife having passed and his loneliness, and there's just certain layers of the story that might be a little bit difficult for like a first grader to understand as they're reading through this. So even though it's all ages, it's not necessarily for children. So that's kind of where the complexity of this kind of comes in. But most of the time, A or E is going to be children's titles. The one that comes up most often is Cheese Sweet Home. That's kind of the blockbuster of the A or E variant. It's another cat manga. Cat manga is really popular with children. Cats are actually very popular. The One of the most popular characters is actually an alien cat called Doraemon, and that would be an A or E manga. Um, there's all sorts of different things that you'll kind of run across. The Disney manga is all, I believe, A or E. Some of it might be Y or youth, which is the next level. So Y or youth, I don't think all publishers use this particular category. It's supposed to be for like the age 10 plus. It's kind of your middle grades level. It might have some mild violence. Think of your Pokemons, your Digimons, your Gundam Wings, your Saturday morning cartoons. That is generally your Y or your youth range. Like I said, not all publishers use it. It's kind of fallen, I think, in usage in recent years. I think publishers just kind of lean towards either saying, it's just an A or an E, or I'll just label it as teen, or whatever. But that's typically what fits into that Y category is, Saturday morning cartoon type stuff, which is the one type of manga that I don't have a volume of here at home to show you because they're just not the type of stuff that appeals to me. What gets published over here, at least, it just tends to be, like I said, that Saturday morning cartoon stuff. I wasn't into Pokemon, especially as a kid. I'm sorry. So I don't have any Pokemon manga. I'm sorry. But what I was into is my example for the teens or age 13 plus category is Sailor Moon. Which you might be surprised is not in the Y or youth category, but there's reasons why this is teen. So teen is probably the most popular category. I'd say the majority of shonen battle manga falls into this category, this age range. It's basically your equivalent to PG-13. It's going to have some potential sexual innuendo, some violence, and it varies in like how much is there and how much isn't there. And sometimes a title will start sort of innocently and not too heavy and then get really, really violent or really sexually... the innuendo will really step up by the time you get to the end. And it just kind of is the nature of shonen battle manga to do that. Like the first few volumes of Naruto are fairly tame. Battles are not too intense. And by the end, I don't know, it's all sorts of explosions and nonsense and fighting and whatever. That's just kind of the way shonen is because it's all about the character is supposed to be getting stronger, and as the character is getting stronger, their foes are getting stronger. As their foes are getting stronger, the stakes have to increase, and as stakes increase, violence increases, and so it gets boom, 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 boom. So, Sailor Moon is a teen title. Um, you probably have a good awareness of Sailor Moon. These particular editions from Kodansha are really, really great for the library market because they are printed on higher quality paper and they're really well bound. The copies that we have in the actual library have held up pretty well. These are my personal copies. I am torn as to whether I'm just going to add them to the library when we get back to business in terms of being open physically, or if I'm going to keep collecting, because I get torn that way. But anyway, they are really beautiful though. They have color pages and all sorts of things. This is fairly rare. It's just because of the high popularity of Sailor Moon. The reason why Sailor Moon is probably a higher rating than you might expect is because there's a bit more violence and sexual innuendo and stuff going on than you might think. Particularly towards the end of the series. The characters die actually various times throughout the series. They come back to life though. They always come back. But, you know, there's death. It kind of follows actually the Shonen Battle stake building pattern of each time they fight a foe, it gets more and more elevated in terms of stakes. Yeah, they're pretty frequently in peril. There's some nudity and things, but it's so beautiful. Every time I look through this, I'm just always blown away by how beautifully done the manga is. Naoko Takeuchi is so talented. Anyway, that's not what this video is about. Sorry. So that's the teen category. Like I said, it's going to be a pretty wide category. That's why you have to really pay attention to what's inside of them, depending on where it is you are. For me, teen is a fairly safe category to buy from because I'm at a high school in Brooklyn, and that means I'm pretty secure in it'll be fine. But most of the time I know what the series is and I know what's inside of it, so you know. Then where you might want to pay a little bit more closer attention is when you get into the older teen category, because this I find can really range, and sometimes I don't understand why publishers choose to make something older teen as opposed to teen. It's a little bit nebulous to me. They're a little bit above T. They're supposed to be for ages 16 plus, like I said. Sometimes there's explicit sexual content or explicit violence. It usually is one way or the other. Usually it's more violent or more sexual. And that's where it kind of makes it lean more towards older teen. Usually when you get both, that's what will throw it over into the M category. It's, like I said, it's very, it can be kind of weird how they make these decisions, because here's a title that is older teen. It's The Way of the House Husband, which is another favorite of mine. It's actually a comedy manga, and I would have pinned this for basically being teen. There isn't extreme violence, and there isn't sexual content in this title. I think the humor kind of makes more sense to adults, because it's a comedy about a former Yakuza member who is now a full-time house husband. His wife goes to work and he is at home all day, and he basically has taken on the role of a stay-at-home husband, and he does things like makes lunch for his wife and takes care of the household chores, and his approaches to doing these very everyday mundane things are very different because of his background as a Yakuza, and that's the joke. So maybe it's because the joke lands a little better with adult audiences that they pushed up the rating, but saying that the rating is that way because the audience is... This is a seinen title, so if you're saying... It's very weird to me, because it's like, okay, so because it's marketed to adults, you're gonna rate it older teen, but then the rating system starts to make less sense to me as a person trying to judge appropriateness for curation and selection. So that's why older teen is like this category that is wacky to me. A title that more closely fits into the older teen category is Meizan Ikoko, which is a classic for Miko Takahashi, title which has recently gotten a really nice reprint from Viz. This is so nice. Meizan Ikkoku is one of my favorite of Rumiko Takahashi's. It's a romantic comedy. Just such a fun title. And this really does belong in older teen. It has some sexual innuendo. It's, there's things like people walking in on each other in the bath, and it's a group of adults living in a shared home sort of situation, and there's all those sort of people living in confined quarters, sort of wacky things happening. So that's what sort of leads it towards, like, there's sexual jokes, and there are shots of people in compromising positions and those sort of things that, can be a bit more or less appropriate. So that's what will kind of lean things more towards the older teen. Like I said, it's either more sexual or it's more violent. Things like a lot of Junji Ito titles that are rated older teen. Older teen is something that you're probably going to have to read, or read reviews of, just to know what is actually in it, because the rating just, it can go either way. And then finally, the last rating is M, or mature. For me, this is always a no-go. It's just, for a manga to get an M slapped on it means that there is either extreme violence or extreme sexual content, and most of the time there's extreme sexual violence. And it doesn't mean that these titles are not worthy of being purchased, but for me in a school library, those are just things that I think are best left for my students to find in either public libraries or in their own purchasing decisions. There are certainly titles that I own that are M. I own Junji Ito's adaptation of Osamu Dazai's No Longer Human. I really enjoy this. Well, enjoy is kind of the wrong word for it. I think this is really well done. And I am glad I own it. I think that's the better way to put this. It's because this is kind of a book of misery. Um, it's a work of literature that has been put into visual by somebody supremely talented. Um, and it can be like it can be really, really dark stuff that's in here. And for this particular title, what casts it over the edge to me is there are depictions of sexual abuse in this title. I knew that before I even read it, so I knew I was definitely not going to buy this because I read the original book ages ago. You just, if you're considering purchasing an M title, you really need to read it and be critical if you're in a school library. If you're in a public library, you should also consider that it may not mean that you shouldn't have it if it's an M title. It doesn't mean that it's pornographic if it's M. Although there are certainly M titles that are pornographic. That doesn't mean discount them. There actually are a lot of titles that are great works of literature, like this, that you might want to consider purchasing. I think this belongs in a public library. The original text is taught in college courses and is part of world literature surveys. I believe there was a question about Osamu Dazai when I took the literature GRE. I mean, and having a graphic novel adaptation of it. I mean, this isn't even the first graphic novel adaptation of No Longer Human that's ever been done. So, you know, having it is actually a tool that you probably should have. So don't be afraid of the M category, but just be aware of what that means in terms of content, particularly if you're serving like a teen audience. So yeah, I hope that lends some clarity. It's not super clear, like I said, because it's done by the publishers, and I feel like their decisions are super arbitrary. I don't make too many decisions based on reading, to be honest with you, but I feel like it's a good way for people who don't know manga super well to get a gauge on what it is they're looking at. I think that's probably why I wanted to talk about this, because I feel like it's a good guideline for somebody who is kind of coming at this as a beginner. So that's really it in terms of ratings, and I hope this was helpful to you, and I will see you in the next video.